In every city, there are streets the light never touches. Places where whispers linger, and footsteps echo too long. And in those shadows, justice bleeds. Some crimes vanish into the rain, washed away before dawn. But the truth leaves marks. Stains that never fade. And someone must follow them, no matter where they lead. They call it vengeance. Others call it obsession. But for me, it is a vow. A vow written in shadows, in silence, and in blood. This is Blood and Justice. It began in Ravenshade City, a place that never sleeps. Rain poured down, washing the neon signs into streaks of red and blue across the soaked pavement. The night was heavy, the kind that pressed down on your chest, making it hard to breathe. A man stumbled out of the alley, clutching his chest. His shirt was torn, dark with something the storm tried to wash away. He fell beneath a broken street lamp, the bulb flickering like it couldn't decide whether to stay alive or burn out. Cars sped by in the distance, their wheels slicing through puddles. No one stopped. No one looked. In Ravenshade, people learned not to notice. The city was cruel like that, it taught survival, not compassion. But one figure noticed. From the far end of the street, a silhouette stood perfectly still, watching. Not moving closer, not moving away. Just watching. The man on the ground tried to speak. His lips trembled, rainwater mixing with the words he couldn't say. His hand stretched out weakly, but the shadow didn't move. It was as if the city itself was holding its breath. Somewhere deeper in the alley, a door slammed shut. Footsteps echoed, fading into the distance. Whoever had left him there was gone, or maybe still waiting in the dark. The rain grew heavier. The flickering lamp finally died, leaving only the red wash of a neon sign across the body. For a moment, it looked like blood was spreading across the pavement, but it was just the city's cruel reflection. And above it all, Ravenshade whispered its unspoken truth: in this city, justice bleeds slowly, if it comes at all. The storm refused to let up. Rain hammered the rooftops, the gutters, the rusting fire escapes that clung to the sides of Ravenshade's old buildings. Sirens eventually cut through the night, not rushing, not urgent, just another sound the city had learned to live with. Detective Marcus Vey pulled his collar tight as he stepped out of his car. His shoes splashed into the shallow rivers that ran along the curb, soaking him instantly. He hated nights like this. Nights when the rain carried secrets down the drains, washing away evidence before he could even ask the right questions. The alley was already sealed off with yellow tape, though few had gathered to watch. Ravenshade wasn't the kind of place where people gathered to gawk. Here, everyone stayed inside, curtains drawn, pretending the world outside their windows didn't exist. The body still lay under the broken lamp, the city's neon glow painting his face in fractured colors. Marcus crouched beside him. Mid-30s. Average build. The kind of man who could disappear into the city without leaving a trace. His ID was gone, his pockets turned inside out. Someone wanted him erased. But it wasn't the man's face that caught Marcus's attention. It was the way his hand stretched outward, fingers still curled as if pointing toward something. Marcus followed the gesture, his eyes narrowing toward the end of the street, where the silhouette had been reported. But now, only rain and empty pavement remained. A uniformed officer approached, water dripping from his cap. No witnesses, detective. Just a report of shouting and then, nothing. Marcus stood slowly, eyes sweeping the alley walls. Posters peeled from the bricks, graffiti half-washed into meaningless smears by the storm. But then he noticed something near the dumpster, a streak. Not blood, not exactly. Something darker, like oil, smeared by a hand. He knelt again, brushing the rain from it with his sleeve. It wasn't oil. It was paint, fresh, black paint. A mark. A message. The storm rumbled above, as if the city itself disapproved of what he'd found. Marcus straightened, his jaw tight. Ravenshade had always had killers, thieves, and liars. But this felt different. This was ritual. As the paramedics lifted the body onto the stretcher, Marcus stayed behind, staring at the mark on the wall. Ravenshade whispered to him in the storm, and for the first time in years, he felt the city shiver. The city didn't sleep, but it certainly hid its secrets well. Hours had passed since the alley was sealed, but the rain hadn't slowed. Ravenshade's skyline was a blur of jagged steel and glowing signs, each promising warmth, each delivering only shadows. Detective Marcus Vey sat in his car, windshield wipers struggling against the storm. He lit a cigarette, the flame briefly illuminating the lines carved deep into his face. He wasn't a man easily shaken, but something about that mark on the alley wall gnawed at him. Paint that fresh meant purpose. And purpose meant danger. His radio crackled. Unit 3, disturbance reported on Kelsworth and 9th. Possible connection. Marcus flicked ash into the tray and turned the key. The engine coughed, then roared reluctantly to life. He pulled into the flooded street, tires slicing through water. Ravenshade felt like it was watching him drive, every shadow an eye, every alley a mouth waiting to swallow him whole. When he arrived, the scene was eerily familiar. Another alley. Another broken street lamp. And something else, graffiti, large and deliberate, smeared across the bricks in jagged black strokes. This one wasn't a single mark, it was a symbol. Circles overlapping, lines intersecting. A message in a language no one wanted to admit they understood. Two uniforms waited near the tape, their boots already soaked. One of them stepped forward, nervously tugging at his cap. Detective, no body this time. Just the mark. But locals reported shouting. Then nothing. Marcus stared at the symbol. Rain streaked down its edges, distorting its shape, as if the city itself wanted to erase it. His gut twisted. This wasn't random. It was staged. Someone wanted him to see this. A shadow moved at the end of the street. Too fast to make out. By the time Marcus raised his flashlight, it was gone, swallowed into Ravenshade's labyrinth. The detective let the beam fall back onto the wall. The rain made the symbol glisten, almost alive. He didn't know what it meant yet. But he knew one thing for certain, someone was writing a story in blood and silence across this city. And he was being dragged into it, one mark at a time. The rain finally thinned to a drizzle, but Ravenshade never offered silence. The streets pulsed with noise, music leaking from bars, the low growl of engines, the occasional bark of a stray dog. Detective Marcus Vey followed the trail from the symbol, his gut telling him the night wasn't finished with him yet. He found himself standing outside a bar on 9th Street, one of the oldest in the city. The sign flickered, casting a sickly red glow across the wet sidewalk. A neon martini glass buzzed faintly, the light broken in the middle, giving the illusion of a knife instead of a drink. Fitting for this part of town. Inside, the air was heavy with smoke, the stale stench of spilled liquor soaked into the walls. A jukebox hummed an old blues track, barely audible over the clinking of glasses. Marcus scanned the room. Regulars sat hunched over their drinks, eyes down, like they'd all agreed to pretend they hadn't seen him walk in. At the back of the bar sat a man with a scar splitting his eyebrow, a glass of whiskey untouched in front of him. Marcus knew the type, informant, survivor, someone who thrived in shadows. Their eyes met, and the man gave the faintest nod, inviting Marcus over. "You seen the mark before?" Marcus asked, sliding into the booth. The man's lips twitched, almost a smile. "Ravenshade has a way of leaving scars, detective. Some get painted on walls, some get carved on people. That symbol? It ain't random. Marcus leaned forward, his voice low. Then what is it? The informant glanced around, lowering his voice to a whisper. It's a calling card. Been years since I've seen it, but back then, it meant only one thing. Someone's claiming territory. And it ain't someone you want knocking on your door. Before Marcus could press further, the front door slammed open. A gust of rain blew in with two figures in dark coats, their faces hidden by dripping hoods. The bar went silent, the jukebox skipping mid-song. The informant's hand froze on his glass. Marcus's instincts screamed. Something was about to happen. The two strangers stood motionless in the doorway, water dripping onto the floorboards. Then, without a word, they stepped aside into the shadows, leaving only tension behind. Marcus exhaled, but the storm inside him was only just beginning. The rain refused to stop, hammering down on Ravenshade like it wanted to drown the city itself. A bus rolled along the avenue, its windows fogged, headlights cutting pale tunnels through the storm. Inside, the passengers sat quietly, shoulders hunched, eyes glazed from exhaustion. No one spoke. Near the back, a woman sat alone, her face hidden beneath a dripping hood. She kept one hand tucked inside her coat, fingers curling and uncurling as though she were gripping something sharp. Across from her, a man dozed, head resting against the glass. For a second, her hood shifted, and neon light from outside flickered across her cheek, sharp, pale, almost ghostly. The driver glanced into the rearview mirror. His eyes caught hers. Something about her stillness made his chest tighten, but he said nothing. Ravenshade taught silence, silence kept you alive. At the next stop, no one got off. No one got on. The woman shifted slightly, her gaze fixing on the man asleep beside her. She leaned forward ever so slightly, lips moving as though whispering words meant only for him, or for herself. The bus groaned as it climbed the slick hill, streetlights flashing across the rows of tired faces. When the man stirred, his eyes fluttering open, she was already watching him. He froze, confusion knitting across his features. Something unspoken passed between them in that moment, recognition, maybe, or something darker. Then, as the bus rattled into the shadows of an overpass, the lights flickered, and she disappeared from sight. But her presence lingered, heavy in the damp air, like the storm itself had left behind a passenger that no one could see. The storm finally began to ease, though the streets of Ravenshade glistened like a mirror of blood and rain. Down by the waterfront, where rusted cranes loomed like skeletal giants, the police had already cordoned off another alley. Yellow tape flapped in the wind, its warning lost in the roar of the river. A lone detective stood beneath the glow of a flickering streetlight. His trench coat was soaked through, his hat pulled low, but his eyes stayed fixed on the body at his feet. The man from the alley, the one who stumbled, bleeding, beneath the neon, now lay still. This time, there was no shadow watching. No whisper of help. Just the silence of the city swallowing him whole. The detective crouched, brushing rain off the pavement. His fingers paused on a small object beside the victim's hand, a matchbook, cheap and damp, with one word stamped across it, the glass veil. He knew the name. Everyone in Ravenshade did. A club where the city's shadows gathered, where secrets bought more than bullets ever could. Behind him, another officer shifted nervously. "Sir," he muttered, "should we call it in?" The detective didn't answer. His gaze lifted toward the skyline, where the neon burned red against the clouds like fresh wounds. He knew this wasn't the end. It was only the first cut. As he stood, the rain started again, softer this time, but steady, as if Ravenshade itself was mourning. The tape snapped in the wind. The city breathed, restless. Somewhere, someone was already preparing the next move. And with that, Ravenshade whispered its truth once more: in this city, crime never ends, it only waits for the next chapter.